Hello. Today I'm going to try out a third variation of the tangle pattern called O. So I'll begin as I usually do with my 4 corner dots and drawing lines connecting those dots to create a border. Next I'll draw in my string, which is a grid pattern, by drawing one line down the middle, one to the left, and one to the right. A line down the middle, one to the left, and one to the right. You might hear my cat Mooka in the background. He's busy playing around. I'm going to go ahead and switch to my micron pen now, and in each of those intersections, draw a small inked-in seed shape. I'm drawing them vertically, but I will be turning my tile later so that they're horizontal. So if you feel the urge to draw them horizontally, go for it. I'll go ahead and speed up this process a bit. So in the past two variations, on the top row, we drew S shapes all going in the same direction. So here I'm starting at the upper right hand seed and connecting with these really loose S shapes to the lower left hand seed. And in the previous variations would continue, drawing in that same direction. But this time I'm going to play around with going in the opposite direction, starting at that upper left hand seed and drawing to the lower right hand seed. And I'm going to alternate back and forth. And going down to the next row, I'm going to start in the opposite direction as what I did in the first row. So start at that upper left hand seed and going down to the lower right hand seed. I'm going to continue alternating in this pattern throughout the rest of the tile, so I'll go ahead and speed it up. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in those S shapes that go behind. And it looks like as we fill in this tile with these going behind shapes, there's really not going to be any weaving of these larger O shapes. There will be those 4 O's that are in front, and then we'll have the rest of these O's happening in the background here. Interesting how the variations create just these subtle differences in pattern. I'll go ahead and speed up the process a bit. I of course like when things weave in and out. So I'm going to try that pattern again where I draw an inner aura on the S shape that was going behind. So to make it appear as if that S shape that was on top is going through the S shape that was going behind. So I draw in my inner aura and ink it in. Now last time we did this, all of these behind S shapes created sort of little fishtails here and there. But I have a feeling in this pattern that these inked in aura S shapes will create O patterns, which I'm excited to see. Let's see how it unfolds. All right, so to decorate these S shapes that used to go in front, I'm just going to add 3 flicks into each corner. I kind of wanted the decoration for these S shapes to be a bit simple. I think I'm going to do some pattern design in the background, so I didn't want to overcomplicate things at this point. I'll go ahead and speed things up. Being that eau is the French word for water, I kind of wanted to stick with this idea of ripples in water. So for the background, I'm going to put a dot and then draw concentric circles, as if we had just plunked a rock or a pebble down into some water, and then there are these ripples just expanding outwards. And I'm going to fill in each of the gap spaces with this same pattern. Every once in a while, I throw in a bit of a shine, which is a break in the circle and sometimes a dot, just for fun. And I don't really think about where to throw in those shines, it's just whenever the urge struck, I popped them in. Some of my Zentangle friends lament that their hands wiggle and they create wobbly lines when they're drawing patterns like this. Don't worry about it at all. By the time you're done drawing this pattern, you'll see that your wiggles and your wobbles, they're yours, and they'll be consistent throughout the tile, and it'll look as if it were a natural part of the pattern. Plus, there are so many details once you add this many little decorations, and I can't take in all those little details at one time. So other people will probably look at your artwork and think to themselves, oh my goodness, how do you draw so perfectly? And you want to say to them, hey, if you look at each one of those lines, it wiggles, it wobbles, because it's hand drawn. And that's sort of the glory and the joy of hand drawn artwork. It has those personal imperfections in there. So don't worry about your wiggles and wobbles. I get them especially after my morning coffee. Let's go ahead and speed up this process a bit. time for some shading. So I'm going to shade on the inside of these auras, these auraed S shapes that used to go behind. And I'll put a little bit of graphite on the outside too. I'll shade each area where I added those flicks and the entire inner area where we put those concentric circles. So along the inside of that S shape that used to go behind, in the areas where I added my flicks, and along the entire inside border where we added those concentric circles. I'll continue on with this pattern. Alright, let's blend it all in using our tortillon. This is where all of the shading magic happens. You can smooth out all of those graphite areas and make it look like a nice shadow. Alright, I'm satisfied with this experiment with the third variation of O. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my chop. And sign the back of my tile with the name of the Tangle O, and that this is the third variation that I've tried out. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me. Please let me know if you go ahead and experiment with O. I'd love to hear how things went for you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.